It was an autumn evening, a couple weeks before Thanksgiving in 2010. My husband and I lived in the woods outside a small town. In a small, very rural county, we worked an hour's drive away in the next major city. He had been called to work late at the last minute, so we had gotten home late. I was stressed when we got home after sitting in his truck for 2 hours after my own job was over. He decided to eat leftovers, but I wanted a salad. So I opted to drive to the small non-chain grocery store in the neighbouring small town. Where I live, there is a lot of wooded area with no civilization in some areas for miles, since a lot of it is national forests. There are lakes, rivers, ponds, marsh, swamps and lots of woods. Not to mention we live near the Gulf of Mexico, so there are public beaches also. So, after the stressful evening, I didn't mind too much having to go out to the store. I felt the need for some time alone with my music in my car, just to unwind. It was a time of year when it gets dark early, so it was pitch dark outside. I left my cell phone plugged in on the counter in the kitchen. Smart, I know, which I always did when I got home from work. The ride through the woods to the mom and pop grocery store, where they sold really great vegetables, was uneventful. I grew up in the area, and it has, for the most part, always been safe. As I drive up at the store, I noticed a lone car sitting in the parking lot, right in front of the store. The car was really beaten up looking, lots of dents, plastic taped on the back window, rust, a backlight's cover was broken. Around here, you just don't see cars in that bad shape. So, I pulled up right beside the car, get out, flip my locks, and realized I had locked my purse in the car. Once again, I was really tired and had a stressful evening. So, I unlocked my car, opened my door and leaned in to grab my purse. As I straightened back up, I had that weird feeling you get when someone is watching you. As I turned, I noticed the person in the old beat-up car. It had not even registered with me until that moment that someone was sitting in it. I turned and noticed the guy sitting in the car. He looked about 40-ish and had long grey hair and a beard and looked unkempt. He gave me this creepy, weird, slow, from top to bottom look, and then back up. It wasn't the kind of look like some guy would do, like how you doing, if you know what I mean. I caught his eyes, and he just gave me this evil smile and had this cold, dead look in his eyes. He was just creepy, and I just got some real bad, evil vibes from him. I purposely ignored him and headed into the store. And as I was going in, another guy was coming out. He looked a little younger, just as unkempt, but I tried not to notice him much. I just wanted to get inside and away from the other one. While in the store shopping, I kept having this gnawing feeling at the back of my mind, like a dread, like something is just wrong, and I finally realized that the strange guy had really creeped me out. It's hard to describe an encounter like that, but it kind of stays with you. Anyways, I paid for my purchases and I know the lady that cashiers there, so I told her what happened and we sort of made a small talk about the two guys. She said the other one had told her they were from another state, camping in the woods somewhere around there. She didn't remember where he said. After paying for my few purchases, I went out to my car. I was glad I didn't see the beat up car. I get in my car and put my bag of groceries and purse on the driver's seat and turn on my music and cross the parking lot heading for the highway. In a nice ride through the woods to my house. I noticed a car came up behind me from the road, which is way over to the other side of the grocery store. And it's the beat up car and the creepazoid passengers. I pull out on the road and they pull out behind me. Okay, I told myself, they'll probably pull off on one of the side roads. They're probably camping somewhere around here. So, once I'm out of that area, driving through the woods, heading to an intersection where I make the turn to go home. The car stays right behind me. Then, they get right up on my back bumper and turn their bright lights on. I speed up. They speed up. I slow down. They slow down. So, I'm starting to get really scared and freaked out at this point. Well, I thought since their car is dragged, mine is a fairly late model. I can probably leave them behind. So I sped up to about 70. They sped up also. So, I'm now sufficiently freaked and wondering what to do. I'm not one to drive high speeds like this, I'm hoping and praying I don't wreck. It's dark, except for their lights glaring through my window, which affected my visibility and sense of orientation. My heart is pounding, and I'm getting past scared and into terrified. After a few miles, you come to an intersection. To the right is about 15 miles of woods to the road that leads to my house. No civilization until you get to my neighborhood. To the left, there is a long road, but most of the homes on that road are vacation homes, and I don't know anyone from there, and don't know if there would be anyone in any of them at this time of year. If you go straight, there is about 20 miles of woods, no homes or businesses to the next county. At this intersection I came to, there is a restaurant. I would have to make a sharp left, then a sharp right to get to it. I didn't know if I could do that as fast as I was going, but I somehow maneuvered my car into that turn. So, I flew into the kind of long driveway and realized that the restaurant must have been closed early, because there were only 2 cars in the employee parking lot and nothing else. But outside lights were still on. I pulled in, parked, ran to the doors and started banging on the restaurant's front door, crying and shaking while looking behind me to see if creepy guys were behind me. They pulled into the drive and sat there for a minute. I'm banging on the restaurant door, screaming and about to wet myself. I don't know if anyone was inside the restaurant or not, but after what seemed an eternity, the creepy guys left. They backed out and headed back in the direction from which they came. I could not get anyone to the door of the restaurant. If I could have, I would have called the sheriff's department and called my husband, but I was basically stuck. I have no idea what those 2 guys were planning on, but I doubt it was good. I locked myself in my car and was scared to get back on the road, wondering if they would be hiding in wait and start following me again. The drive home was 15 miles and scary, but I made it without incident. I told my husband what happened and we called his buddy, which is one of the local deputies and someone we could trust to actually try to find these guys and find out what they were doing here. But he never found them and I never saw them again. Now, I don't like to travel anywhere alone at night. I live in the deep south in a small rural town. We're near a town that borders the Gulf of Mexico, so we have public beaches. One night, my husband and I and our favorite couple friends decided to go to one of the public beaches in our area, throw some chicken on the grill, and party into the wee hours of the morning. This was always one of our favorite things to do on a Friday or a Saturday night during the warm months of spring and summer. So, to describe this particular public beach, it's pretty isolated, but it is just off a main highway. At night, the occasional 18-wheeler and other cars pass, but not a steady stream, just vehicles here and there. But the picnic tables are in a long straight line with the building housing the restrooms, kind of in the center. Past the tables there is a wide expanse of white sand and the beach past that, so the beach is on one side and the road is on the other side. So, soon as the 4 of us get to the beach, our hubbies want to drive into the next town to buy beer, so they leave. And my friend and I, Jana, are sitting on top of a picnic table, catching up on gossip, laughing, occasionally turning the kitchen on the grill, etc. I have stayed here before and have never thought anything of being afraid. It's always been safe and most of the time nobody stops here at night, unless they are going to use the public restrooms. Anyway, our husbands had not been gone for long when a van passes by. The van slowed down as it was passing the beach. You can see everything from the road as the area where the picnic tables are is well lit. We just glanced at the van and kept talking, but after a minute or so, the van came back. I'm a little nervous because from the time I was a child, I've had quite a few creepy encounters, but I kind of shrugged my nervousness off, thinking maybe it was just someone coming to use the public restroom, or even possibly someone we know. So, the way the tables are situated, they each have several parking spaces in front. Where you pull in, the front bumper of your car would be facing the tables, but they pulled in sideways, taking up several spaces, where the passenger side was facing us. My friend Jana and I just looked at each other, kind of wondering what's up with this. This guy gets out of the driver's side and walks around to where we were. The side door slides open and a guy climbs out and just kind of leans against the side of the van. I could see another guy in the back seat, but didn't get a good look at him. The guy in the passenger side seat did not get out, but kept looking around nervously. So, the driver walks around to where we were sitting and says, "Good evening, how you lovely ladies doing?" Or something goofy like that. All the guys had longish hair, and the guy leaning against the side of the van looks like a biker. He was tall, kind of chubby, had long brownish hair, and had a bandana tied around the back of his head. So, we are trying to be polite without encouraging anything. The driver was the only one that talked to us, which I thought was strange. The guy standing by the van had his arms crossed and just looked mean. The driver asked what such lovely ladies like ourselves were doing here all alone. Of course, we explained our husbands had gone to the store and should be back any minute. He invited us to go partying with them. And of course, we told him thanks for the offer, but we were going to wait for our husbands. At this point, Jana and I are both feeling really nervous. A highway patrol car passed by at that time. The guy on the driver's side looked like he was freaking out then. He'd been nervously looking behind them and stuff. He finally said, "Hey Carl, yeah, I'll get them in the car and let's get out of here, man." Thank God, my husband's familiar vehicle drives up just a few seconds later. The guy leaning against the van got back inside. Carl shook hands with my husband, looked kind of self-conscious, and kind of politely got back in the van and they drove away. My creepometer that lets me know when something or someone's not right was rising to the top. My friend Jana had this wonderful protected childhood and she doesn't always get a weird sense like I do, but she said they made her nervous too. I hope they didn't mean it like they said it, but it had me feel as if they were thinking of forcing us into the van. Later, in retrospect, I wonder if the guy in the driver's seat was the lookout guy, and Carl and his buddy leaning against the van were thinking of forcing us to go with them. I'm from a large city and went to a college in a large city, but the majority of my family lives in a rural area in the south. I'm used to the way that people act there and understand that smaller town folk are more likely to be friendly to strangers, and that being chatted up with in a convenience store is not usually cause for alarm. However, this was a completely different case. It was about 5 years ago around Christmas time. My younger cousin May, who was around 6 at the time, and I were planning a movie marathon. My uncle offered to drive us to the local gas station to pick up some DVDs from Redbox. He waited in the car while May and I picked out movies and gave us some cash to run inside and buy 2 cups of hot chocolate. I remember the gas station being weirdly crowded, which I suppose is the reason this was able to happen. As soon as May and I walked inside and headed for the coffee hot chocolate machine, I noticed a grungy, bordering on homeless looking guy leaning against one of the freezer doors where they keep the ice cream and other frozen stuff. He made intense eye contact with me and then began to stare intently at May. I don't know how else to explain it, except that my stomach dropped. My heart started to beat a little quicker. I still remember exactly how I felt, just that this guy was not right. May was completely oblivious and was concentrating hard on filling her hot chocolate mug up as much as she could. The guy made it over to us and just sort of grunted and stared. I ignored him until he looked at me and said, "Does your daughter need a coat? It's really cold outside for her to be dressed like that." I quickly explained that she was not my daughter, and that our family was waiting for us in the warm car outside and that she didn't need a coat. Instantly, his entire demeanor shifted. Like he was angry that his first attempt didn't work. "Come on, I've got a nice extra coat in my truck. Perfect for a girl your daughter's age. I'm just parked out back." The alarm bells really started to go off then. I firmly told him no, and ignored him again. He got even more mad. "You're a terrible excuse for a mother. You let your child walk around exposed like that in the cold, and you won't just come out to my truck to get a coat for her?" At this point, May is looking at me like, what the fuck? And I'm keeping her behind me, away from this creep. I remember looking around me for help, but no one was paying any attention. There were so many people in that store and they were all chit-chatting with one another. I guess they thought we were doing the same. I again told him no, we didn't need this coat, thank you very much, and started walking away towards the cash register. This is when he made his last-ditch effort. He grabbed May by the arm and started pleading his case to her. Come on, sweetie. Don't you want to see the cool coat I have in my truck? Forget what your mummy says and just come see it. I was super pissed at this point and yanked May away from him. She was starting to tear up a little from confusion and fear, and the guy just stood there, fuming. We quickly paid, ran to the car, told my uncle what happened in a big rush, and his response was basically, I wasn't there, so there isn't much I can do about it. We went home, watched our movie, and May seemed to completely forget about it. I didn't though, and it still creeps me out to this day. I really hope that guy was just a weird old grandpa who actually did have a coat in his truck. But my gut says there was something more sinister going on. My purse. As I straightened back up, I had that weird feeling you get when someone is watching you. As I turned, I noticed the person in the old beat-up car. He had not even registered with me until that moment that someone was sitting in it. I turned and noticed the guy sitting in the car. He looked about 40-ish and had long grey hair and a beard and looked unkempt. He gave me this creepy, weird, slow from top to bottom look and then back up. He was in the car sitting in the parking lot, right in front of the store. The car was really beaten up looking, lots of dents, plastic taped on the back window, rust, a backlight's cover was broken. Around here, you just don't see cars in that bad shape. So, I pulled up right beside the car, get out, flipped my locks, and realized I had locked my purse in the car. Once again, I was really tired and had a stressful evening. So, I unlocked my car, opened my door and leaned in to grab I'm alone with my music in my car, just to unwind. It was a time of year when it gets dark early, so it was pitch dark outside. I left my cell phone plugged in on the counter in the kitchen. Smart, I know, which I always did when I got home from work. The ride through the woods to the mum and pop grocery store, where they sold really great vegetables, was uneventful. I grew up in the area, and it has, for the most part, always been safe. As I drive up at the store, I noticed a lone. It was an autumn evening, a couple weeks before Thanksgiving in 2010. My husband and I lived in the woods outside a small town. In a small, very rural county, we worked an hour's drive away in the next major city. He had been called to work late at the last minute, so we had gotten home late. I was stressed when we got home after sitting in his truck for 2 hours after my own job was over. He decided to eat leftovers, but I wanted a salad. So I opted to drive to the small non-chain grocery store in the neighboring small town. Where I live, there is a lot of wooded area with no civilization in some areas for miles, since a lot of it is national forests. There are lakes, rivers, ponds, marsh, swamps and lots of woods. Not to mention, we live near the Gulf of Mexico, so there are public beaches also. So, after the stressful evening, I didn't mind too much having to go out to the store. I felt the need for some time.